Unless you actually lost a child, this pain that we're carrying, you would never understand it.
Stand for what's right. It could be your loved one. It could be yours.
He can actually see my son with the paramedics working on him, about to put him in the ambulance. And we're just asking the police, is that our boy? It would mean everything to have some kind of closure.
Damien was my only boy, and he was a family man.
Once I held him, it was just an unbreakable bond. And it was instant love all over again.
He loved playing basketball. He was a football player. You know, his favorite NFL was Eagles. He was his mama's boy.
They find strength in the morning to wake up each day.
And I'm gonna keep fighting to my last breath.
Holding on to what's left.
When I look at this picture with his eyes, it's like he's watching me.
Knowing that their sons are never coming back home.
And I look, it's like he's watching my every move. Like, I'm watching you, mama.
38-year-old Damien Morton shot and killed in 2017. He was found inside his car.
Being at the hospital, knowing that there was nothing that I could do. You know, mothers feel like they can be there with their children, but like it was out of my hands. I couldn't do anything to help my child.
3 years before that, 24-year-old Corey Crow Sr. was also found inside his vehicle, shot to death.
At the funeral home. It was the first time I got to see him. Then I finally realized, yep, it is my baby.
In 2019, a drive-by shooting took the life of 19-year-old Christian Gwen.
When I look up, my husband's on 43rd, and I'm on Market, and we're screaming his name. And I can still hear myself screaming for him. I'm saying, Chris, where are you? I'm here. Where are you?
Damien's mother remembers her son spending much of his days looking after her and his stepdaughter.
He came over every day. I mean, if we went to, we had dinner together, you know, we would do things together. It's a struggle some days to keep going. Like my son's picture would be in the living room, and I would avoid going in the living room. I would go around the house. I mean, I wouldn't check my mail unless I came outside and got my mail, because it would hurt my heart to see my son's picture and knowing that my son would not walk back through them doors anymore.
Corey was hoping to open a barber school. When he was murdered, his only son was 5 years old.
I believe Corey's in a better place. But I tell you who is hurting and who's in pain and who is suffering is Corey's son and me. And that's why I wanted that blanket here. He was at the house. He has a little brother. He went to his little brother and said, "Come here, Sean, come here." He's like, "Okay." He said, "Come on in here so I can go in the living room and sit on my daddy's lap." The blanket, the throw. You hurting families, you hurting these kids. This got to stop. It's gotta stop. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Ugh.
Christian set his heart on becoming a volunteer firefighter. His mom says before his murder, the 19-year-old had just taken a class to pursue his dream.
My son would have gave anybody the shirt off his back. My son donated his eyes, his ventricles of his heart, and the muscles in his legs. So somebody right now is seeing the world through my son's eyes. And I'm hoping whoever's looking through his eyes see the dreams that he had and have the same ambition that my son had in his life.
With a record number of homicides in the city this year, these mothers know firsthand the pain of waiting for answers. Some of them waiting as long as 6 years because their cases are still unsolved.
So I feel like my son's case and other mothers' cases are just getting pushed farther back, and no answers. This is a club that they could have left me out of. I didn't have to be in this.
I don't forgive the person that shot my son. I won't forgive the person that shot my son. That sounds cold and heartless. But you took my son, and that was cold and heartless. And you don't get forgiveness. You need justice, and you need to be in jail.
Do you have any idea who might have
murdered your son?
I don't, and that is the thing that probably puzzles me the most, because I don't never know if I'm even entertaining that person at some point. I don't know. I don't know if that person possibly could have came to the funeral, if that person could have came to my house. I have no clue.
Since her son's murder, Rosa Smith used her pain to find purpose by starting the Ace Place, a nonprofit promoting entrepreneurship. It offers children in the community a safe place where they can come work with mentors.
I have to be his voice. I have to be able to speak. You silenced him, but I will not be silenced. We want to give these children opportunities and let them know there's a better way. You don't have to, do that, and we got to give them experiences.
As the years go passing by, the patience wears thin.
You don't understand, once you shoot that gun, you can't bring that bullet back. This is not a video game. My son's life won't come back at the end of this run. You can't put another quarter in that machine. You took my son's life.
But the grieving mothers are not losing hope on the day when they'll see justice for their sons.
That hope I do keep alive every day.
If you see something, say something. If you don't, it's gonna continue on.
It's been a year and I'm still crying. It's never gonna go away. But it's somebody there that understands your pain. And as long as I got breath to breathe, I'm gonna try to fight for these gun violence victims.
As parents, we're faced with challenges daily, but this is by far the biggest challenge that I've ever had to experience.
They took a beautiful little girl's life from her. They just don't know what they did to our family.
I can't get my mind around me not ever seeing my son again. These are our kids. This is our future, How is it okay?
2020 has a real eerie feeling in most neighborhoods.
Inside a funeral for another victim of gun violence.
She was like a flower, a bud nipped before it could really come to flower.
The pain is palpable.
It's a terrible thing to watch.
For Metro Louisville, this year has been marked by bullets and bloodshed. For Spring Valley Funeral Home, it's been a busy year.
It's overwhelming some days to see these families because, I want to make sure that we give every family the correct and the most tender, loving care that we can. And these 18-hour days some days get old.
Percentage points provided by the Louisville Metro Police Department paint a picture of the problem. In the first 9 months of this year, homicides are up by more than 80% compared to the same period in 2019. For the summer months, the numbers are even more jarring. August alone up by 450%. Anthony Oxidine's funeral service has buried most of the victims.
We've experienced close to 100 that we have taken care of here through our funeral home. We've helped, which is a tremendous amount of people.
We know the surge in shootings has been particularly painful for communities of color. LMPD reports nearly 70% of this year's homicide victims are Black. So are 75% of the people arrested. We broke down the incidents by zip code, finding the vast majority of fatal homicides happened in 40211 and 40210, both in West Louisville. The trend isn't unique to 2020 or even to Jefferson County. According to experts, it's a nationwide issue, and it's nothing new.
Before there was a pandemic and before there were large protests in response to police violence, communities of color were overrepresented in gun violence. And that's particularly true in cities.
Still, communities of color are most vulnerable, he says. So are young people. Many
are not in school. Their after-school programs are not available to them. Their recreational opportunities are not available to them. So they have a lot of time on their hands, but they don't really have social supports.
It's another problematic percentage point. More than 25% of the people killed in Louisville this year were 18 to 24 years old. 12% were under the age of 17. Children and young adults make up the highest percentage of suspects too. More than 13% of the alleged shooters are teens. or children.
This is happening to children here in our community. You know, we see children shot frequently in the Louisville community. This isn't somebody else's family, somebody else's community. This is us.
Norton ER physician Dr. Britt Anderson treats children with gunshot wounds in this downtown Louisville hospital.
I remember every child that I see that has died, that I take care of. You know, I think the hardest ones are the ones that you can't do anything for.
This year, Norton Children's Hospital has seen a 100% increase in gunshot wounds, 47 so far this year, compared to 23 in 2019.
The hardest times are the times when you just realize you just feel so helpless, I guess. And then to have to talk to the family and tell them that there's nothing more to be done. It's gutting. And something that you don't forget.
So, how did we get here? Researchers have spent months examining every obstacle of 2020, trying to figure out what led Louisville here to the most violent year in the city's history. What they're discovering is a series of challenges facing our city and others.
I think the set of conditions in Louisville are maybe particularly problematic as it relates to gun violence. I suspect part of that is the Breonna Taylor shooting and the response following that. And then I think we also can't lose sight of sort of the, for lack of a better term, pre-existing conditions.
Pre-existing conditions like the loss of social services through COVID-19, food or housing insecurities, and stress brought on by health concerns. Louisville's homicide rate is up by 81% compared to last year. Other major cities are seeing similar spikes. Research from the National Commission on COVID-19 and Criminal Justice suggests the average city homicide rate was 53% higher in summer 2020 than summer 2019.
Most big cities, you are seeing notable increases in gun violence. Many measures of crime, including some measures of violent crime, are going down. The exception is gun violence.
Now, cities nationwide are looking for answers, looking for how to put a stop to the trend tearing families apart.
At home in their house, they should be safe, playing, not have to worry about anything. Definitely not a stray bullet hitting them.
Every day you have to wake up, go outside, and hope and pray that, you know, you're not the wrong place, wrong time.
And then we wake up to one of our young prodigies just gone.
When a child is involved, it just changes the whole game.
No one can turn a blind eye to this issue. They can't do it.
Fighting violent crime is a science, one that has been hypothesized, studied, and experimented with. But in the face of a pandemic, much of the research is still in progress.
This is something, of course, we'll be studying honestly for years to try to really untangle all of this.
Research shows there are evidence-based approaches that work, but they work under normal conditions. 2020 presents problems beyond what we've ever seen before.
You have a series of conditions that are sort of like a perfect storm, where social systems or law enforcement systems are all taxed, and it's leading to great loss of life in many cities.
It's a troubling trend across the country, violent crime, in particular gun violence, spiking. Most cities saw an increase of about 53% from summer 2019 to summer 2020, according to research from the National Commission on COVID-19 and Criminal Justice. In Louisville, the numbers are even worse. Homicides are up by 81%, according to LMPD.
Just with the proliferation of the sheer number that we've had, obviously has put a burden on us.
Law enforcement is stretched to the limits as social services are cut back or canceled altogether. So we asked the experts who have been studying this for decades, how do we get past it?
For Louisville to thrive, it is going to have to commit itself to, again, these key principles of fair policing, balanced approach with positive supports to the most vulnerable for being potential victims of violence.
First, balanced policing. Experts explain this comes from pointed efforts, like deterrence programs that target the few people in a community engaging in violence. But police can't be the only ones working for change.
You know, it's not law enforcement alone that's ever going to solve this.
Experts say providing basic security in all aspects of life is crucial to cutting down on gun violence.
Through community supports, through actual helping, like providing social services, providing job opportunities to those individuals, providing mental health supports, substance abuse, housing, all the kind of insecurities that might lead them to pick up a gun in a variety of situations. You actually want to help and provide assistance so that they're making good choices.
The two answers, social services and trusted policing, work hand in hand. They also work best face to face.
The systems are strained by the pandemic. It does make this work harder, but lives are obviously depending on that, and we can't take our eye off the ball. The harms that are created by gun violence are really incalculable. Aside from the deaths themselves and even the injuries, the fear and trauma in these communities is just incalculable.
So now it's up to Louisville to find a way forward, to provide the life-saving help our citizens desperately need.
We try to keep people from doing is shooting each other. We having a better luck at this point in time with the younger ones.
On the regular, we're going to try to keep a gun out of a guy's hand.
We definitely need to do something about the crime. We definitely need to be intentional about that work, but we also need it in perspective, and we need to invest in the root causes of crime.
If we could get a hold of the kids early as possible, then we can kind of change some of the dynamics a little bit.
Dr. Eddie Woods says it starts with model behavior.
Parents call every day, can you help me with my son or my daughter?
He's the CEO of the group No More Red Dots, his way of saying no more stolen lives in the city of Louisville. He and his team of volunteers take matters into their own hands to save their neighborhoods by mentoring young people.
We try to get them into the right program. The different and group sessions and trips and different events and things that change how they think, change their whole sense of purpose.
He's been doing the intervention work for decades, reaching out to more than 100 children and teenagers.
The more that we got somebody in our corner, the easier it is for us to come up out of the situation.
Some of Dr. Eddie's mentees are walking the path he's helped pave.
He's 40 years old, so 30 years of his life, 25 years of his life, 15 years of my life, he's just been consistent.
Like, we help give back simply because we seen Doc do some of the same things we went through. Like Doc says, with or without a paycheck, with or without money, on the regular, we're gonna try to keep a gun out of a guy's hand.
When police are called to shootings, Eddie and his volunteers get a notification and then deliberate about whether they should head over to the scene.
No more than an hour or so, we know why a person was shot. Sometimes we might know who did it, and what we're looking at is how deep the retaliation piece might go. If it's somebody we can talk to slow down the retaliation.
Some of the people that nobody's gonna be able to reach, we are the ones that can reach them, no matter how much programming they do. And we don't put Band-Aids over bullet wounds. We try to figure out the best way, the most effective ways to reach the people that we can.
Deshaun, Rontel, and Levon say the wound is deeper than meets the eye.
A lot of us face poverty, so it forced us to have to go do other things, which, you know, like we all got friends and family that's in the penitentiary doing 10, 20 years for life.
When the city tears down all the community centers, the places where the kids supposed to have a safe haven, and leave them with nothing else to do, then you turn to the streets.
Focus on the things that keep people in poverty. If you know that poverty and wealth predict educational outcomes, change the quality of life for these children.
The Louisville Urban League's president and CEO, Sadiqa Reynolds, says her team has been working around the clock during the pandemic to help as many people as possible.
We meet with clients by appointment. We have done some home outreach. We've had to do that. We've had to do grocery delivery. We've had to change our business model significantly in order to adjust.
The Urban League's $52 million sports and learning complex will soon transform West Louisville, offering a space for mentorship, physical activities, and job opportunities.
It's going to bring, and it is already bringing, economic development.
But as experts say, basic security in all aspects of life is critical when trying to combat the violence. COVID-19 has made it especially hard in 2020.
We want to be sure to connect those that have been underestimated in our community and underserved with financial resources so that they can build well.
The Metro government has recently partnered with El Home, a nonprofit that provides residents in West and South Louisville affordable loans to promote small businesses and home ownership. In November, they launched a free financial navigators program.
We will sit with you on the phone and we will listen to whatever it is that you have going on in your life without any judgment. There is no shame.
I'm calling from El Home Financial Navigator Program.
It's to help people navigate financial issues related to the pandemic.
We give them suggestions and ideas. So if they're looking for rent assistance, well, what about utilities, or are you okay with food? Just to let them know that some people have never asked for help, you know, and it's okay because a lot of people need help at this time. Most people who turn to violence, they don't know what else to do. So having this financial navigator program is a way to let people know that there are resources.
Mayor Greg Fisher recently introduced a new national strategy that Louisville will use to curb violent crime. It's called Gun Violence Intervention.
There's over 25 years of success with this approach.
David Kennedy helped develop it. He's a professor and director of the National Network for Safe Communities in New York.
It's based on a fundamental understanding of homicide and gun violence that's evolved over about 30 years.
Local and federal law enforcement officials will identify persons who are in circles that are causing violence in neighborhoods with high crime rates. Those individuals will meet with prosecutors, social workers, and peers who are impacted by their actions.
Talk directly with people in those groups and say to them, we want you alive, we don't want you hurt, we don't want you locked up, we don't want you to and won't let you hurt anybody else.
The strategy has been used in cities like Oakland and Boston.
The first time this was implemented in Boston in the mid-1990s, it cut homicide in Boston by 50%. And homicide amongst those age 24 and under by 63%.
Do you think this will work in Louisville?
I do think it will work in the city, and one of the reasons is because it is a way of saying concretely the way we have been doing public safety has not been what it should be.
It's a team effort, so it's up to us to save our city. To learn more about these resources and how you can do your part, head to WHES11.com. For now, reporting in Louisville, I'm Sanaika Brigadges.